I might get tired of holding my phone like this and just finish it at home. But wanted to make a video about girls and dating and stuff in Belarus. So it's certainly better than the United States, especially if you're a European and you want to be with another European person. But there are many more reasons than that. Just socially, the girls here are much less screwed up, much more normal. But there is one big thing that I'm not so sure that foreigners know. And I cannot say that this is how every girl in all of Belarus is. This is just how pretty much all the girls my wife knows are. I've met a lot of them. So yeah, who knows? Maybe she only happens to know girls that are a certain way. But for the most part in Belarus, young girls do not tend to meet guys in person. What I mean by that is, I don't know if it's the fault of the girls, the fault of the guys, I don't know if it's anybody's fault, but guys tend to message girls on VK, and to a lesser extent on Instagram. I've told my wife, but you don't see Instagram messages from people you're not friends with. And she told me, well, the girls, they look through those message requests and they check them every so often. But VK is the more common way, or at least it was years ago and may still be. Everything is changing, so who knows? It certainly was much more common years ago. But yeah, guys are, especially young guys, teenage guys, are much more likely to message and meet girls from VK than from going to bars or walking around, like being on the street or something. It's too bad, because obviously it's best to meet people in person. It's nice, I guess, that they can meet each other online and hopefully communicate and get to know each other. And, you know, there's pros and cons of everything, but I am a fan of meeting people in person, although I met my wife online, and perhaps that's why she was so open to getting to know each other online, language learning app, because her friends all met guys online also. At the time, well, I don't know if the exact time I met her, but soon after I met her, one of her friends was talking to a guy on VK who lived in Ukraine. I think he lived, Lvov, yeah, or as Ukrainians call it, Lviv. He lived in Lviv, she lived in Gomel. They visited each other sometimes. But yeah, online is the way the young people seem to tend to meet each other, at least amongst people my wife knows and girls that I've met. At a first glance, you may think that guys have lots of success with girls at bars and clubs and stuff. Like a classmate of mine told me, oh, but it seems like the girls here are so easy. Like, I see these guys at bars and clubs and they're dancing with the girls, they're buying them drinks, blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna stop recording. But the thing is, and maybe you can realize it without me saying it, there's a big difference between buying girls drinks and dancing with them and talking with them in a bar or club, and actually getting them as your girlfriend or bringing them back home to go in bed with them. Big difference. Who doesn't like free drinks? So don't be deceived by that, and I'd say don't waste your money. Now, with younger people, it's different. Like, when my wife was 16, she would tell me about cases where young guys would go into cheap restaurants, you know, kind of like McDonald's type places. At the time, there were no McDonald's or KFC where she lived. Now there is one McDonald's at least and 3 or 4 KFCs. Crazy how the world changes. But like young teenage guys would go in and like buy stuff and sit down at a table with random girls and start talking with them, and the girls liked it. They got free stuff, and it wasn't even Like, yeah, they like the free stuff, but they also like talking with the guys, and like, it was a nice, friendly communion of people. So yeah, nice, friendly interaction. It's not like the girls just went to that restaurant to get free stuff from guys. They went there to hang out, and actually they bought their own food. I'm using an example of when my wife went with her friends when she was 16. Yeah, they were not hanging out there, waiting for guys, dressing special, hoping they would come up. No, I don't know if it was after class or between classes or on the weekend, I don't remember. But they went to like little cheap restaurants together, because that's what young people do. They go to little like cheap places and they get very small amounts of really cheap foods, and maybe they get like a soda and they hang out, or sometimes they just get a coffee or just get a soda. Like, Belarusian youth tend to be very minimalistic in what they buy from restaurants. Now, I'm not gonna comment on what I was gonna comment on. But what I will say is you can also see this in portion sizes like at university. So it makes sense to serve, like, you can pick 1 chicken breast, 2 chicken breast, like, a single chicken breast is a unit of chicken. But for rice, like, really, I'll pour some oatmeal and show you about how much rice they serve as a serving. I ate some fish out of this bowl last night and did not clean it with soap, but I think I got a little bit sick from the fish, so I'm not going to put my oatmeal in this bowl. I will be cleaning that bowl with soap. So, like, imagine that this is wet rice. Now, you can't really tell how much it is. Like, to me, it looks a little bit like it's more than it is on camera, but this is a pretty small amount. Yeah, now you can see how small it is. It's not that much. So they have very small portions of things. Like, I don't want to eat so much rice, but if I was actually going to try to have like a rice and chicken meal there, I'd be like, 4 i 5 porcji ris. But usually I just get 1 portion of rice, and I get like a croissant or one with stuff inside it. Because if you're going to have carbs, why not have more enjoyable carbs? So yeah, dating in Belarus, sadly it's not so much meeting people in person for young people. I can't speak for older people. I imagine there's less of the online stuff, but I don't know. And now, of course, some people are going to meet people just because they live close to each other. Like my MMA coach, he met his girlfriend because they live right next to each other. You can meet people in school, but if you don't find someone you really like in your school or close to you, the young people here are probably going to find them online, not by going around places and trying to find people. And it is customary for the guy to pay for stuff. I imagine that's changing because, like, really the youth now versus a few years ago, like, or let's say like versus 4 years ago when I first came, very different. I'll make a good example which can tell you a lot. Not that there's anything wrong with this, but like 4 years ago, you occasionally saw girls walking around holding hands in a little bit of a special way. Now, girls walk around and they hold hands, and it's just, there's nothing to it, they're just holding hands. But sometimes you notice that these girls, they seemed a little bit more affectionate towards each other. I don't remember exactly what they did, but I could tell, my wife could tell, it was like common knowledge that they're lesbians. What's funny though is lesbians here call themselves gay, oftentimes. They're like, sorry, bisexual girls here call themselves gay a lot of the time. So they'll be like, I'm gay, and then you're like, well, how come you're hooking up with a guy? And they're like, I like girls too. You're like, well, it makes you bisexual, not gay. But I don't care what words they use. I think it's a shame that society is going this direction here. You can't really stop the poison of the West due to the internet. The internet goes everywhere nowadays. It doesn't matter if you live in a village in Belarus, a village, I don't know, China, maybe they censor the internet, I don't know. But yeah, it's poisoning a lot of people. Nowadays, you see a lot more kids with, now this is not the same as being gay, I'm not trying to say that, but with colored hair, with weird hair, with piercings. You see the homosexuals also, and luckily I haven't seen any transgenders here. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you know, I personally like a society where people are physically and mentally healthy. It's that simple. Yeah, so given the change in population, there's certainly a change in young people dating. I'm not going to speculate on more of the changes. But yeah, it's certainly a different young person dynamic than even like 4 years ago. And interestingly, it probably comes as no surprise to a lot of people, given how certain people tend to act in the West. You do notice that these different people that are more common here now tend to spend more of their money. You go into a bar, especially if it's like a more of a hip bar with like niche stuff. Like you go into an old Soviet type bar, first of all, there's not going to be young people, it's going to be older people that are alcoholics probably. But you go into like a basic place, it's going to be like normal people. You go into like a special bar. Now of course, if it's really expensive, then you're going to filter out a lot of people. But you go into like a special bar that is middle price range, it's gonna tend to be a lot of the. Now, I'm not saying this is the majority of people, but I am saying that you'll notice, compared to other places, a lot more of like the colored hair folks, the LGBTQTZ whatever folks. You notice a lot more of these different people. What's funny is I was in a bar the other night, and I'm going to make a separate video on this, but I heard people speaking English, and I heard them speaking about Gomel, where my wife lives, and I heard them speaking about the district she lives in, and then also they were speaking about if it's safe or not. I thought that was funny, because it's like, yeah, it's completely safe. And it turned out that one of the guys is from Czech Republic, from the second biggest city, I forgot the name of it. But long story short, he said the biggest difference between there and Belarus is that Belarus doesn't have homeless people. But I could tell he wasn't really a fan of the president of Belarus. Now, hopefully his mind will change as he spends time here, because if you're an open-minded, intelligent person, you go, man, it's actually really nice here. It's really great that there's not homeless people. It's